we get to it.
I thought about making the thumbnail Graham Platner and Lindsey Graham and making some kind of Graham
Lindsey
pun.
Graham Platner.
Yeah. But I was like, but Lindsey Graham doesn't entirely fit into what I want to talk about.
Yeah,
I'm fine with talking a little bit
it'll
about
get there.
it.
Yeah, somebody on the internet, a friend of mine had commented about like not a friend of mine, it's my like mutual like friend, like on TikTok friends, like where we both follow each other. Not that I know the person or have any relationship with him, but he said something about a video about, yeah, I thought it comes in threes, and it was, and it's McConnell and it's
The big beautiful
Graham.
obituary.
But that no, but then he was
Oh,
like, but then Sam Neill, is that a separate three? Is a separate thing growing? Like, how does it work? We have two politicians, and I commented, it brings me no joy to say this, but you are suffering from a category error. The category was not three politicians; it was Jurassic Park stars, Sam Neill and two dinosaurs.
nice. Let me turn my ringer off. My ringer is off. Why did it ring? It's London Logan's friends is hanging out with Logan. They're at the pool.
Hope they don't drown.
All right. No, there's a lifeguard. Kid, yeah, the kids can't go in the pool without the lifeguard there. As for our HOA's insurance policy.
It was on Dear Old Dads a week or two ago. Tom was talking about having a pool party for one of his teenage sons, and one of the other kids brought a younger sibling, and neither one of them could swim, and they both almost drowned in the deep end. And he goes, "How does the second one do it after the first one did it? I got to you both do the stupid thing."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Logan's got a friend that yeah, he's got two friends. He's got two friends that are brothers that I think they could swim, but like Logan was like, let's go in the deep end, and they were like, one of them was like, I don't have my float to go in the deep end, and he goes, you're not allowed to use a float in the deep end, like at this pool.
It's for adults,
And,
not kids.
yeah,
If you can't go without a float, don't
yeah,
go.
yeah, and I'm like, Logan, like, just if he wants to not go in the deep end, just stop. Like, he was getting pushy. I'm like, just chill.
It's not your job to make your friend drown.
No, not this time.
It's not a job; it's a hobby. You got to work your way up to make it a career goal. I was a very powerful swimmer as a child. There was this lifeguard. We had a summer house near a lake, and there was a lifeguard at the lake who really wanted to learn how to play guitar.
Yeah.
So he traded guitar lessons for swim lessons. Like my dad was taught him guitar all summer one summer, and I'd go to the lake early, and he would give me swim lessons. But like, he did swim lessons like generally for kids for money, just to my free. But he also kept doing it with me. Like I didn't just get the basics. We kept going. He kept making me better and improving my stroke to the point when I was really young, so I was always good. And so when I was like a adolescent, we had a swim club, a swim team that would compete against other communities, and people would beg me to be on the team because I could outswim most of the people on the team. And I was like, A, you have to wear those little skimpy, bikini on bathing suits. So no. And B, you guys get here at 6 in the morning and you swim till like 9 for practice. And then you go home when the rest of us are getting to the beach. Like, I don't want to ruin my summer. And then every once in a while, they would bring me in as a ringer. Like, they'd be a shorter person. They're like, Matthew, can you compete in backstroking at Hemlock Farms? I'm like, if I don't have to go any practices, I'll compete. So they would occasionally pull me in just to win an event. And or at least come in second and not be embarrassed against the other teams, so they can come in last or have to forfeit. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I competed occasionally, but I was never officially on the team. They just had my name on the team so that they could use me when they wanted to.
This is Logan's first year on swim team, and he's been fighting because he's like doesn't want to commit to anything because then he knows we'll make him go, and then when he
That's what commit
when
means.
he wants to give up, he's so he just hasn't done, and it's all his friends were on it for the last several years, and we're like, come on, man, don't you want to try it? Like, you'll get to be a better swimmer, blah blah. Finally, he signs up for it this year. He loves it. He's like, it's like he says basketball is still his favorite sport, but he's like excited to go to practice. He's like, let's go early so I can swim ahead of time. And so it's like you're already there.
Yeah,
Like
swimming is
he
fun.
was there half the time last
Yeah.
year, like, and so we were like, dude, like this is good for you. And then he's getting into it, and he isn't used to a coach that is kind of like repetitive with drills. So like he bitches a lot. He's like my son, so he bitches a lot. And he's like, oh, he made us do the backstroke 10 laps the other day, last night or whatever. And then Saturday he had the like Cary City uh swim meet where it's like every team can go, and like it's like a more official big deal thing. And he took 8 seconds off of his backstroke time, and if he hadn't looked to make sure he wasn't going to hit the wall, he would have won the race. He hasn't even come close in any of them
Mhm.
to like
Yeah.
winning the race. I mean, he's been in
Yeah.
second a
Look
couple
what
times,
happens
but
when you spend an entire practice doing
yeah,
one thing.
yeah. And so we were like, this is, so maybe like give the coach a little bit of easier of a time, especially because he's a really nice guy. It's not like, like I've seen bad coaches, like and rough coaches. He is like
Well, he was doing it
tough, but
because
he's
it's what
not.
you have to do to
Yeah,
improve, not because it makes his job easier.
right. And him and his friend, after one of the practices, they were like, oh, the coach. They were like googling if what he made them do at practice was child labor or child abuse. And they were like, if a 32-year-old man, and I'm like, do you think your coach is 32? And they're like, yeah, he's definitely 32. I'm like, he is absolutely not
He
32.
is 20.
He is
He's a college
20,
student.
maybe well, and one of Logan's friend goes, well, he has a degree. I'm like, okay, so he's 22. like like
Yeah.
he's there's, I mean, he could be as old as 27, but
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's
He's
been
not a,
coaching for a few years at this school, but like, or
you
at
know,
this
I,
pool, but
from kids their age, I understand it as a normal kid's reaction. I used to hate when I get that shit from adults in improv classes.
yeah,
Well, what do we have to do this exercise for? It doesn't feel like it does anything. Like, what the fuck? I'm the teacher. Do what I fucking say. And I don't like even to rehearse improv. As an individual, I run the rehearsals and I get a lot out of that. And I like to create it. I don't like to be on stage in rehearsals. I just don't do my best. It's not me. And like, I would go and play with another group. Played in California with my brother's team, and I know before the show they were thinking this guy's going to suck because I wasn't great in rehearsal, and then I fucking was the number one player during the show, and people were giving me an ovation at the end, and they were like, well, "Who the hell? Where were you at this afternoon?" I'm like, "I just don't perform for you guys. I perform for the audience."
yeah,
But occasionally people will be like, well, "Why don't you get up here and show us how it's done?" We'll get up here and show us how it's done, and occasionally I will, and I'll fucking blow them away to a point where they then can't get on stage because they feel so. Oh my God, if that's what it's supposed to be, I can't do this. I'm like, well, see,
mhm,
that's why I don't do it in front of you.
yeah,
As Mikey used to describe it as, when most of the idiots would perform with a student, if you picture a blender and the student would be on a one or a good student would be a two, and most of the idiots perform at like a level 5 speed on the blender, they'd come down to a one or a two, perform with them. Maybe they'd go up to a three and see if they could bring you along. But this is when Mikey was a student, he described it this way. And he goes, Matthew comes on stage and he goes, okay, you ready? Yeah, puree, and drags you into the scene. And it's like, keep up or die. That's the way it is. I don't
yeah.
have a slower speed when I'm actually performing.
I mean, from doing this for the last three
Yeah.
years or 4 years, I'm aware.
Yeah. I mean, you see me improvise in our
Yeah,
in your films. Give
yeah.
me your marinara, motherfucker.
So Logan's in guitar camp this week
Oh
over
boy.
at Notasium, and Sarah was like, "Can you could just sit there if you want." I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Sit there for 3 hours." And then she goes like, "You could bring a book or your laptop
Or
and
you
do
could
some
pay
work."
attention and you're getting guitar lesson free. Go
They're
home
in
and
a
practice
room,
it.
so I'm like in the lobby. So I brought my guitar. I brought my laptop today, and I
Yeah, we
basically
know the viewers
decided,
can see at least three guitars in the background, in
yeah.
cases back there.
I brought my laptop, and I had decided I'm gonna write because I've been wanting writing time, and for me to bring all the stuff to edit the documentary, it's a shit ton. It wouldn't make any sense because I have to bring my external hard drives, and it's hard to do with one monitor, and so it doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, oh, I'll just make this like allotted writing time. I haven't written I haven't sat and sat and rat. I haven't sat and written in a while. I'll write, and I have two ideas that I am really like. I think they're the two things I want to write right now. One is that TV show I told you about, and then this past week I had an idea, and I know we're live and we have one viewer in the chat, so they're going to get to see this. Um, to hear about my idea, but you're familiar with the movie Brewster's Millions.
I was a big fan of that movie. I think that's a very under appreciated movie.
I love that movie, and it was the third or fourth. The Richard Pryor version is like the
Yeah,
third or fourth version. So
right,
it's like,
right.
because it's one of those.
That's the only version that I know. I know there are classic
Yeah,
1930s, 1960s, whatever. But
yeah.
yeah, Richard Pryor. I
It's
can beat the Yankees for 3 innings. I can beat anyone for 3 innings. Really, if you could pitch anyone to a no hitter in 3 innings, you would be one of the top closers in the major league. You wouldn't be playing minor league ball.
yeah.
I mean, even as a kid,
It's
I was like, "That's ridiculous that he would say that."
it's one of those. It's one of those movies. I think that is it's like Groundhog's Day, where it can be applied in a million different ways. And like that one's more of like you could do that every generation and have a completely different movie based on the setup. Now obviously I don't have the rights to that movie, so I'm not writing that movie. But what I had as a thought was a guy who owns a marijuana uh empire, like a pretty big marijuana business, legal marijuana business. And when he dies, he was a big fan of Brewster's Millions, and he decides to, oh, now four people hop on to hear the idea. Uh, he decides to give the business to a friend of his if they get ridiculously high for a month, and it's Brewster's Milligrams is my working title for it.
Versus Milligan. I like it. I like it.
And I wrote the first 15 pages today, so hopefully everyone that's in the chat is trustworthy and is not going to steal that idea. So
Patreon sucks, man. I posted a Patreon link in my Facebook, and it has the right headline, "Priorities and Public Figures," but it's showing Eminem's image and censorship double standards. It's showing the wrong thumbnail, even though it's linking to the right post.
right, and the post has the right thumbnail, right?
Yep. Looks right on the post. Just for some reason, it's pulling the wrong image.
I did it originally. It had the wrong image on there, and then I replaced it and I refreshed it. But Mr. Nimrod says he's taking notes on the idea.
Oh God, if he was literate, that would scare me.
Oh, somebody dropped out of the chat, so they're probably like, okay, I got the idea now.
They are on their way to Hollywood.
But yeah, so I wrote the first 15 pages. I'm gonna try to write for 3 hours every day while I'm sitting at Logan's camp this week. So, and then if I can write 15 pages a day, I will have almost an entire screenplay by the end of the week. So, and then I start.
The magic happens.
Yeah. Oh, it's 6:32.
6:32. Where are your priorities, Mike?
Yeah. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I know there's only a couple of you on right now, but if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. If you're watching recorded and not live, please hit like and subscribe, comment, and tell us. You missed a what I think might be $1 million idea in the pre-show.
I would call it a milligram idea.
Yeah. And that will be the only thing you'll get without paying.
That would be so funny if you had listened and watched the last 5 minutes.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome back. We are talking about the big stuff today. We're talking about the priorities that we put upon the people we as a society elevate to public figure status. And I say public figure and not necessarily politician, because I think that, when you talk about someone like news pundits, like I think Tucker Carlson and like people who have never necessarily run for public office, but have had a huge impact on the motion of society.
Yeah. But I think it goes also with celebrities of any ilk, not
Sure.
for putting them on the pedestal, but for knocking them off.
Mhm.
Like Louis C.K. rose to the top of comedy for the quality of his comedy, but that the lack of his quality of character knocked him off that pedestal that he was on. It's like,
Right. Right. Well, so I want to talk about that too, because I think we're seeing that with Graham Platner right now. But I also think that there's been some people who've called out the blind spots that Graham Platner was given by, and I was somewhat guilty of this. Uh, because there's been things about him for the last 6 months to a year about the Nazi tattoo, and it's one of those things where is it by itself as bad as it seems as a collection of things, and I think that there is an argument to be made both ways in that. But with Graham
and
Platner,
secondhand um, uh, expectations too, because like for Graham Platinum,
sure,
like the pundits I listened to made a certain case for about that, and if they
mhm,
were wrong, they had a higher standard than I as a listener have. I
right,
don't go on your show and say this is the case
right.
if you don't know it is, if you didn't really vet it.
Well,
Just
and
like,
that
well, I believe him. Well, I don't want to hear you say that on your podcast when you're Pod Save America with 1 million listeners.
yeah.
I believe him is not a good enough reason for you to repeat what he said.
Right, right. And I think that's a great point. I also think that there is, I listen to the Majority Report a lot. That's my probably my biggest go-to news place. And I think the way that they've been talking about it since the most recent allegation came out and since he dropped out, it is logical to me, which is we thought some of these things weren't great, but they didn't seem like as
It's
disqualifying.
plausible
And
deniability of it's in the past and it was this, and
right.
it's
And
it was nothing rose to the level of the most recent allegation, which
well, and yeah,
is disqualifying,
they also
or
talk
it's
about
qualifying to be a Republican candidate, but not for a Democratic candidate.
right. Well, and so I'm talking about Emma Vigeland because she's the one who kind of has gone out and done interviews about it. But she talked about how the redemption arc, which she said almost the same thing you and I have said several times, which is there has to be an option for redemption at least to some for a majority of people if we're ever going to get, you know, if we're ever going to get society where we want it to go. And so when you're talking about Graham Platner getting a shitty tattoo 20 years ago, I mean, Graham Platner is 3 days younger than me. Like very, if he got it 20 years ago, he was 21 years old. And I get it. Like it's a shitty tattoo from everything, but the reason why we had those blinders on largely was because we thought a couple things. One, even right now to this day, I still think that his policies that he was talking about are good. They are the best possible policies for and when you put it into Maine context, the context of Maine, it worked really well. He had the outsider thing that we talk about, which the outsider thing I think is one of those priorities that sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. Like when you need to shake things up. It
Speaking of the Republican candidate for senator in North Carolina, I just saw a commercial about being a Washington outsider when he was the head of the RNC. So I don't know how much of an outsider he is, but in talking about sometimes it makes sense. He's running against our former governor who has never been to Washington D.C. So it's not a
yeah,
differentiator. Like they're
yeah,
both outsiders from that point of view. If they
yeah.
never held Washington office, so I don't understand why you'd run an ad saying I'm an outsider to the people in my party who are currently in charge,
Yep.
just like the opponent to my party who's running. It's very weird to use that
It's
as a
yeah.
running point of
Everything I've seen about
comment.
that campaign has been weird.
Yeah,
But I
but hell, at least he ain't Mark Robinson.
right, true, and
That
and
should be his campaign. Hey, some of you voted for Mark Robinson.
yeah, I do want to just repeat real quick, by the way, because we've got a bunch of people now. Uh, like and subscribe if you haven't already. We do this every week, so that'd be great. Um, yeah, so with Graham Platner, I think that there is, you know, he's similar to, we I think when we talk about the priorities with Graham Platner, the ones that I think have stayed with us to some extent, and ones that we now in the last week have kind of gone, oh, okay. Uh, the one of those character priorities was that like he's not Susan Collins, and that sounds
But once you
shitty.
get to the general, that's the thing. Like that, and because
Yeah,
none of us were paying attention to the primary because we don't live in Maine.
right, right, right. And so when you know he's not Susan Collins, and so like that is one of those things where it gets frustrating because I mean, what before he did, before we not before he did, but before we found out about what he did with his rape allegations, um, yeah, there was some talk
You're
of
so old fashioned, Mike.
I'm not.
It's a grape allegation now.
You know what? I watched a video last night. Do you know who Jessie Gender is? Have you ever seen any of her videos?
No.
I feel like you would love her. She is a trans woman who makes like a lot of like Star Trek and pop culture political
Yeah.
videos. Like
Okay.
she's great.
Which
Um,
platform?
huh? YouTube.
Which platform?
Yeah. Well, Jessie Gender, I watched a video of her and she said she was calling out some people about the Graham Platner stuff. And she said she understands why sometimes people use the word grape or I forget what the other one.
Unalive is the other thing
Unalive. That
going.
was the
Yeah.
other one she said. She goes, I get it in certain contexts why you would do that. She goes, but like when you're doing a video about Graham Platner and you're talking about this and you're really like, she goes, you need to give it the sincerity and severity that it deserves because it deserves those things. And you might say, oh, but we can't monetize. Well, then you can't fucking monetize.
Yeah, but if you're on TikTok, it's the belief, and I don't know if it's accurate, is that not only can you not monetize though, you'll be shadow banned and they won't push your video, so nobody will see your video.
Oh,
So while you
oh,
think the topic is worth discussion, you might as well not discuss it because
yeah.
nobody's going to see your video unless they go to your profile and click on it. Is
That's
the belief. There are
yeah.
people who've done tests where they've done the same video both ways and it hasn't performed differently.
Okay.
Other people have said it did perform differently.
Yeah.
So is it random or is TikTok monitoring your words? That's
Yeah.
a
The
different
people she
that's a
called
different
out,
episode
the people
altogether.
she called out have millions and millions of followers, which also changes everything too. Like, like if you do something that's bad for the algorithm, but you're Mr. Beast, it's not gonna touch you. If we do something bad for the algorithm, there's
Well, the thing is, the theory is on TikTok it would
yeah.
like
Oh
because
yeah.
like it wouldn't go in anyone's stream, not even your followers. It would
Oh
be on your page if they actively went to your page, but if they're just going through their doom scrolling,
yeah.
what would normally be pushed to them won't be pushed to them.
Yeah.
Is the theory? I don't
Yeah.
know if it's accurate, but that's the theory why they have done the algo words, the algo
Yeah.
language, as they say, to please the algorithm.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So
you were talking about how you respected uh, this YouTuber who said don't use those words. Ha!
right,
Took it a
right.
different direction. You thought I was going to slam you, and I didn't. You thought I was going to
She's
talk about
great.
how before the record you were so programmed. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, I I talked to you about it a month or two ago about Graham Platner when other allegation came out against him, and there was some, and we both kind of said like until we hear more or learn
Yeah,
more, we
most
don't
of mine
know.
was
But
from
also,
the guys on Pod Save America seemed to be substantiating his side of the story,
yeah,
and at that time I was like, I trust them. Now they've lost some trust with me because I assume they vetted better, and now I
yeah,
feel like, are you just not vetting? Are you just towing the company line? Because maybe
yeah,
I'm listening to the wrong podcast for information, and I just can't value what you're putting out there.
yeah. Um, but so this is a topic I
And
want to
nobody should be listening to us for political news. We're just two schmoes saying our personal opinions. By
right,
the way, don't say,
but
well, I'm talking about the big stuff. They said he didn't do it. Like, that's not a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, and most of the time I think our opinions are like, how do we look at this, not what happened here.
Mhm.
And it's
We're
anyway.
not fact tellers,
No, we're not
finders of
we're not
fact.
actively lying,
No,
ever.
our role is not finders of
Right, right,
fact.
right.
We're like the Supreme Court. We'll tell you if it's constitutional, but we're not going to tell you if you did it or not.
Yeah. So I had this idea for this episode for this topic 3 or 4 weeks ago before the Graham Platner stuff came out, and then I was like, oh, Graham Platner is a really good example on our side of this. But so I want to talk about the guy who kind of gave me the inspiration for this topic in the first place. Do you know who Patrick Bet David is?
No, I know David Patrick.
Okay. Patrick Bet David is he's a YouTube podcaster. He's I've only been aware of him for about a year, but based on the amount of followers and the amount that he's talked about in a lot of these places, he is. I wouldn't say he's like nearly as ridiculously far right as a lot of the YouTube like right wingers, like where they're borderline Nazis. Now he's a Persian, I think he's Persian, man, who immigrated here as a child. Um, and he's a really successful businessman before becoming a podcaster, from what I understand from other people talking about him on the sources that I like, so that these are biased sources. He got famous for these Amway style like kind of things. So eh, he's been called a scam artist, and he has gotten really pissed off when people say that, because he doesn't realize
Yeah,
that,
like the
like,
people at Subway are sandwich artists. Come on.
yeah, yeah, well, no, because he thinks
He's a
that
scam counter worker.
he thinks scam, well, he's really rich, so he thinks though that scam.
So that means he's definitely not an artist.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe it's not scam. I don't know. It was some word. It was either scam or something similar. Where his argument is that means it's illegal, like a pyramid scheme versus an MLM. And he's like, no, this is not illegal. I have not done anything illegal. And it's like, it doesn't have to be illegal for you to
It's
be.
unethical,
Yeah,
immoral, and taking advantage of people,
right,
but I do it within the confines of the law.
right.
I
And so,
am
well,
a
and
right wing person.
so he gets pissed off. So anyway, he got famous, and he's I don't know if he's had Trump, but he's had a bunch of big people on his show, and he's
Oh,
talked
on his
to.
show. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And the reason I wanted to talk about him when I came up when I thought of this idea, is because this topic is he is absolutely the example of, we as a society in America worship the idea of capitalism so much that we will elevate a good salesperson despite having no other criteria to a ridiculous level. So like, everyone I'm sure that has worked in any kind of job has had a situation where you have a boss who is a complete moron, who was given a raise because they are a good salesperson, which does not translate to good management. It just means you can sell.
Hell
It
yeah,
doesn't
especially
mean you're
working in marketing. I mean, a lot of
right.
people, so many people from marketing were promoted up from sales.
Sure.
And some of the one, I mean, and some of them, that's a perfectly fine thing, and they
Hmm.
adapt really great. But some of them just,
Yeah.
well, they suck. They're just good sales. It doesn't mean
Right.
they're good at marketing.
Right.
And some of those people are self-aware enough to pick another direction and quickly move out of
Yeah.
marketing. And some people just ride on the coattails of the people under them and just
Yeah.
ride you until you want to move to another group.
Right. And like, there's plenty of intelligent, good at other things salespeople. I'm not,
Yeah, I'm saying
even
some of
though
them are
I have a
excellent. I mean, but some of
even though
them
I have a
are not.
personal bias against all salespeople, I'm trying to put that aside for now.
So I worked with this one person in marketing who was from sales, and she hated salespeople, even though she was from sales originally. And she would say, "You know what I hate? I hate talking with sales reps because I know the tricks. So they're all using my name. Hey, Julie, are you doing okay today, Julie? You're looking good, Julie." And they're nodding at me and they're saying my name over and over again. And I just want to reach out and smack them because
Yeah.
I know what they're doing.
But yeah, so I feel like we've all had that boss where you're like, this guy got good numbers on good quotas, and they were like, let's elevate his career. It's not
Like the
always a
Peter
guy.
Principle thing, you get promoted
Yeah.
until you get to a job you're not good at, and that's where you stay.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's been frustrating for me. And then I see Patrick Bet David. And Patrick Bet David, from all accounts, was a good salesperson. I think if you watched 5 minutes of his podcast, you'd be like, okay, he's probably, yeah, I can kind of see how he could be a good salesperson. He is not smart in any other way, as far as I can tell. I will give you an example in a minute of what made me go, oh, this guy's fucking dumb. He doesn't seem to have any kind of grounding in reality, but because he was a good salesperson. And I think that's where we get this idea of, it's the same idea of like, well, Trump's a businessman, Mitt Romney is a businessman, we want a businessman. And it's like, uh,
Just because you got rich doesn't mean you're good at any job you decide to
Right,
do,
right. And Trump
especially not
is
government, where the goal is the opposite of business. The goal in business is to get as much profit off of your customer as you can. And the goal of government's supposed to be to support the people as much as you can. It's literally
yep,
the opposite goal.
yeah. So the reason why I say Patrick Bet David, I think, is an idiot. I've seen lots and lots of examples, but the one example I want to go to is this was February ish. He was talking. He's a big Israel supporter, and he was talking about how um, the way that Benjamin Netanyahu can help himself ingratiate himself to the rest of the world is he needs to do a roast. He said, "Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady is, and this was before the Kevin Hart roast. And he goes,
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady went there and he took it like a man, and then he gave it back a little bit, like you do at a roast, and everyone thought it was great, and everybody loves Tom Brady, and he's doing even better than ever because he did the roast." And Benjamin Netanyahu has to go have some comedians, have some
A
other
couple of
world
people from
leaders.
Hamas, a couple people from Hezbollah. Bring
Yeah,
them all in.
and he was saying it, and I listened to the commentary of others too talking about it, but I'm like, this is the dumbest idea. Like, literally, this is a salesperson's idea of like, as long as they see how affable you are, everything's
Right.
great.
It doesn't matter what the product you're selling
Right.
is, just sell it.
And the
Like, yeah,
problem
he's a
too,
genocidal war criminal, but if you get him to laugh a little bit,
so it's a stupid idea, but it's also like that's how he got famous is because
see, I don't know if it's a stupid
and
idea as much as it's an immoral, evil idea because it could
sure.
work. Like, can I
That's
get
what
that?
that's
Like
where I was
that
going
could
next.
work, but
That's what
that's a terrible way to look at the situation. Of
right.
the problem is not his PR. The
And I
problem is
will
that he
say,
deserves the reputation that he has.
as a young man, when I was 20 when George Bush was reelected, and I liked George Bush. I was also a conservative, but I also liked the fact that George Bush would go on SNL and next to Will
He could laugh at
Ferrell and
himself.
be like strategery and he would laugh at himself, and that made me like go, oh, this guy's
I mean,
probably pretty.
every president at the correspondence dinner until Trump.
Yeah. And so there is an extent to which the whole idea of you could have a beer with them. It's like that's a stupid metric, but we largely use that metric as a way of like ranking, like Hillary Clinton. Do you want to have a beer with Hillary Clinton? No, so she
I
doesn't get
didn't
to be
even want to have a
president.
wine with her.
She doesn't get to be president.
There's
Ted
a and
Cruz, as much as I don't want Ted Cruz to be president, Ted Cruz on paper was their guy. And before he spoke for enough people to hear. Like I knew so many people in Massachusetts that were like, this was early 2015, who were like Ted Cruz for president. And then he got into that first debate and they're like, oh, he's a human booger. He cannot be president.
yeah,
I
there's
don't want to have
the
a beer with him.
TV changed presidential politics a lot
Oh yeah.
because suddenly you could see them sweat. You can
Yeah.
see how they look uneasy. Yeah. Well, say, I've said this before. There are Republican and Democratic candidates for president who lost, who after they lost were on talk
Mhm.
shows, and I'm like, where was that person?
Yeah.
Like Hillary and was so much more approachable and when she guest starred in SNL and when she's on talk shows than she was when she was campaigning.
Yeah.
Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich both, they were like the meanest, angriest people. Like I wouldn't want near me in on the campaign and in office. But
Yeah.
when they were retired and went on talk shows, they were laughing and joking and smiling. I'm like, I never saw you smile once. Like, why are these people afraid to be human when they're running for office? Because Bill Clinton and Obama and George Bush and Trump, to his extent, they won on their personalities.
Yeah.
Why do people hide their personalities so much?
But on the other hand, why do we give that much of a shit? I mean, I'm not saying.
But I'm saying the same as the roast.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it may be wrong, but it's human nature and it works.
Yeah.
As from a marketing standpoint, there are two things that really motivate people to make a change in their behavior: fear and greed.
Yeah.
So and I mean not for politics, but for necessarily, but it's like emotions are what move you and what change you is what I mean to say. Like if we did a commercial for my drug and I said, here are the statistics, the statistics, the statistics, the statistics. You're not like, oh, I should talk to my doctor about that drug. But I show you someone pushing their kid on the swing and having a good time, and you're like, oh man, I can't do that with money right now.
While I'm
That's what I
bleeding from the
want.
anus.
I'm jealous of that. I want that life. That's what motivates you. So similarly, emotion to motivate you more than, I mean, how
Yeah.
many people who go, well, they didn't have any platform at all. And you're like, what do you mean? They had a whole website with their platforms. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I didn't look at it. I just look at the commercials because that's what they care about is what
Yeah.
the personality, not the, or even if they watch the debate and they're like, they have no platform. Like, but they said it on the debate. They said their platform, like,
Yeah.
and all you were looking at was their body language. Like, okay, I'm going to say it, Mr. Nimrod. They were going to say like, well, 74% of what you get from someone is from their body language. And then 10% what you get is from how they say it. And only the last 7%, whatever, is from the actual words they say. There's studies of that for how much you trust somebody and how much authority you think they have. It's body language and vocal tone,
Yeah.
not the actual words that count.
Right.
Right?
And that
Those
makes
percentages are not the accurate ones because it's been years since I've had to cite them, but they're in that
yeah.
general range of accuracy.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And it's
That's why
frustrating.
democracy is a stupid system. Because to quote, like, to paraphrase Men in Black, a person is a rational thinking thing.
Yeah.
People are stupid.
I wonder I wonder if Mr.
Okay,
Nimrod
let me
says
update
55
Mikey saying
38
it's 50,
7.
55. He did a whole presentation on it when he was in school, so he remembers it.
That
I've only
breakdown, though,
done
when you
it
look at it
in,
in that format, it looks like either the weirdest date or the weirdest dimensioned woman ever.
or his blood pressure
50,
is really weird because there's three of
55
us.
38 7.
7.
I
It's
what is that? It's
that's a double amputee. He lost
chest.
both legs.
Yeah. Huge chest, decent size waist, and then nothing
then,
for the hips.
then that was my proportions right after Jaws bit me. Just tapers to a little bit of spine.
7. All right. So that's pretty much everything I got to say. No.
But we got to talk about the I think the values people have and
Yeah.
those that perception, and then how does that justify or not justify the way you treat them in the public eye? Because let's talk about
Sure. That's a
people,
great.
friends. Lindsey Graham died this week, and we got a call from our top patron saying, "You motherfuckers better talk about that, or I'm not being your top patron anymore." So we're going to talk about it in context of this. I was at the lectern yesterday for a large group meeting, and I'm doing my presentation. I'm talking about stuff, and someone in the back of the room, a washed-up stand-up comic. She's not funny. I have embarrassing stories about how at one meeting we had an adult show and tell, and she did a presentation about her stand-up comedy that was supposed to be funny, and nobody laughed. And
So
two
she's like a
weeks later,
Dave Rubin kind of
the
person.
person running the meeting 2 weeks later goes, "Oh, we don't have anyone signed up for adult show and tell. Hey, Matthew, why don't you talk about improv comedy? You shouldn't need to prepare. You're an improviser."
Mhm.
So I did a one-man version of a two-man show that Mikey and I used to do, a two-man presentation we called Behind the Curtain. We talked about how we used improv for impromptu speaking in a business setting. And so I just used it and presented it as best I could. And I had people rolling in the aisles laughing in my improvised thing. And I saw her in the back just looking so crushed and defeated because her scripted stand-up got no laughs and my improv was getting laughs. Very embarrassing. But during my
I get no
presentation yesterday,
respect.
in my presentation, she calls out, "Hey, Matthew, aren't we going to have a moment of silence for Lindsey Graham?" Laugh, and everybody kind of groans. And because of my improv training, I cannot let that awkwardness sit. I have to yes and it to be humorous. So I say, um, actually, I don't believe in a moment of silence. That's too close to prayer for me. So I think we should all have a moment of mayhem. Yeah. And everybody started to, not everybody, most people, 85% of the people started to cheer. A couple of people looked uncomfortable that we were cheering. And then we had a guest speaker from a group called Triangle Skeptics. They're a very cool skepticism group in the area. And he was presenting, and he got to some point where there was some relevance where he talked about being mean to people doesn't change hearts and minds. You have to be nice to people. You have to be welcoming to them. Logic and facts don't change their minds. Being their friend and someone they respect is what changes their minds. And he goes like, you know, you have the right to cheer that Lindsey Graham died, but is that going to help anything? Is that going to change anything? And of course, my wife, who was a brown woman, goes, "Yeah, easy for the white straight guy to say Lindsey Graham wasn't that bad. He wasn't trying to destroy your life the way that the Republicans are destroying ours." And in my head, to get to our topic, oh fuck yeah, I'm going to make fun of that piece of shit dying. He, along with the rest of the Republican Party in Congress, is responsible for about 1 million deaths so far from USAID being dissolved,
Mhm.
and a projected 14 million. I think the Lancet had a study saying they expect 14 million deaths, mostly children, over the next 30 years because of the damage we've done now. Even if we put the program back in place, the damage is, snowballs. You can't just pick up where you left off. Um, and how many farmers have been destroyed in the U.S. because their crops were part of that program, and suddenly they couldn't sell them. So he is, as going to be responsible for more murders than Pol Pot, Stalin, and Hitler over the next 30 years. So fuck him. I'm going to make fun of his death. I'm going to dance on his grave. I think his grave will be the greatest gender neutral urinal ever made. So I am happy to laugh about his death.
Okay, so I want to talk about that for a second. So when we talk about those people that have helped Trump do some terrible things over the last 10 years, there are some. I'm not making an excuse for any of them, but there are some that are worse than others. And I would argue that
He's the worst of them, is what I would argue.
that he's one of the worst of them.
Yeah, he's
And
known as the Trump whisperer. He's the one who gets the other senators who don't want to go along with Trump to go along with Trump.
I'm reading an article from, and I'll link it in the show notes, but it's the American Presidency Project, UC Santa Barbara. I know that doesn't seem like a reasonable source, but I've actually watched video clips from
Now,
this
UC is a
interview.
great program. Those colleges
Yeah,
are all good.
I'm just saying, like off the top of my head, I don't. It's not like the Times, New York Times, or something. I don't know how to, but I do know because I've seen the clip. I'm just looking for the actual transcript of what I was. But this is Trump. This is Lindsey Graham about Trump back in 2015. Trump's a race baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for. It goes on.
If we elect him, we deserve what we get.
He says, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you say, like, if you were completely caught up in his bullshit and believed it, that's a bad thing. But if it's kind of like
But you can understand that, oh, you're just as much a victim. You're a victim who helped do damage, but you
Yeah.
did it because you believed in the cause.
Exactly.
Lindsey Graham was just a slimy, manipulative piece of shit
Yeah.
who did it for power, knowing it was the wrong thing, believing in his heart. Similarly, there are speeches he did on USAID on how important it is and how anyone who would touch it is crazy. It's the most important program we do, and then he helped Trump destroy it.
Yep.
Because it's all about him. So yeah, so I'm happy to the standards we're talking about in this episode of what makes someone come off the pedestal once you put them on there.
Right.
He was one of the people who, back in the day, our good friend President Joe Biden, when he was Senator Joe Biden, talked about a road trip they took where they drove across the country together, and they went from being adversaries to being like buddies. They were really good friends after that. And sure, they don't agree on politics, but they realized what good people they both were and how much they got along, which I'm assuming means that Lindsey gave him a handy on the drive, or maybe blew him while he was driving, one or the other. But then you look back and say, well, that's gone. Once you went to the Trump side, that's gone. And so the speaker we had said, but I would have preferred that he come back to the right side and he make up for what he does. And to our earlier point, we believe in restorative justice.
Sure.
But that fucker didn't do it. He could have, but he didn't. He could have stood up in this. After January 6th, he was one of the people like McConnell who said Trump did it, but then wouldn't punish him. Could have stood up and been a wall protecting people in this administration, and instead chose to roll over, turn around, put his head down, and bite the pillow for him. And screw it. I have no pity for the man.
No. And I will say, like, because I know it's easy
Speak
to
the devil.
Sorry,
chat.
Oh, I was going to say, I know that it's easy to say that we believe in restorative justice and that we, that to talk about these things. When it comes to Trump, I have, and I've said this a few times on the show before, but like I do have an understanding to some extent for people who voted for him in 2016. It was a gamble. Yeah, he said a lot of bad things, but he was also a bullshit art. Like literally, we all were like, what is he saying that he's actually going to do? We have no idea. So it was like rolling the dice. And if you did that, well, that was bad. But if you then were like, oh, this sucks, and you turned around at that point, then I'm like, you know what? We happy to have you on our side.
Yeah, I
You got to
mean,
make,
in the heart and spirit of restorative justice, even someone who voted for him 3 times, if they turn around and
eventually,
they do the work to try to make up for what they did,
right,
that's
right,
fine. Like that, like you can make up for anything short of murder. You can make up, even murder, you can make up for. You can never be totally make up for it, but you can do tons of work to make them. Well, you're doing valuable stuff. Now, I mean, as a science fiction and superhero, fan, we all had superhero villains who became heroes at some
oh
point.
yeah,
Turn around and like Magneto, even though he was a straight villain for the first 30 years of his character. Then they had the Holocaust backstory and suddenly made him likable, and then made him a hero sometimes. And you realize, oh, he's not as bad, even though he killed lots of people. You watch Star Trek DS9, and Gul Dukat was basically a Nazi commandant in a concentration camp. But
yeah.
by the end, people were like, hey, he's kind of not that bad. He did restorative justice. They turned out to still be that bad. But yeah, so I mean, I think anyone can do it. Just Graham didn't, and so I'm happy to make fun of his um, way too quick and painless death.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say I was gonna just clarify that you meant Lindsay in case anybody was just tuning in, but you said
Both of them, damn it.
painless death. Um,
Other Graham pretended to be restorative,
yeah.
and apparently not so much.
Well, and that I think plays to that. When he was talking about these other things, they were years and years ago. And this most recent thing is not that long ago, one of those things in restorative justice is time and action. Like you need
Right.
to
You
have
can't be
taken the
denying
time,
that you did something and have
right,
restorative justice for it,
right.
because you can't make up for something you refuse to admit
it,
you
it,
did.
it is one of those things where like as a parent, and I'm sure you got this to some extent from some people, but like we get called out on like, oh, you're not going to let your kid do that, you did that, are you a hypocrite? It's like, if I did it to, like, if I'm smoking and I'm saying you shouldn't smoke, that's hypocritical. If I smoked 30 years ago, realized it was bad for me, quit, and then told my kid don't
Yes, you
smoke,
should learn from my
that
mistakes
is
is,
not the
is
same.
good
Yeah.
parenting.
So like we do need perspective change, and sometimes that's not that long, depending on what the thing is and what the actions are, to getting there. But other
Like
times it's like
being a
we,
bad pundit,
yeah,
you can become a good pundit and make up for the damage you did by being a
yeah,
pundit on the other side.
yeah,
Being a bad politician, you can't just become a good pundit. I mean, you could, but it takes a lot more time to make up for what you actually did. You need to actually get out there and do the work. You need to do something, and it's different with each person.
yeah,
But I don't. But I think that someone who made no attempt, Lindsey Graham, I will make fun of his rotting carcass all day long.
yeah,
Mitch McConnell, when they, you heard like that they did they're doing was they put a inflatable air pump, like a tire pump, up his ass and pumped it up to take a photo. Apparently, that's why he looks so smooth and wrinkle free and looks so much younger and healthier in the photo that shows he's fine than he did a week before he went to the hospital. Somehow he looks younger and healthier
yeah,
because they pumped him up like the oxygen tent tube. They just stuck it up his ass and inflated him so a lot of the wrinkles came out.
yeah. Well, hey, he's probably pretty delicate, and if that gets the job done. um I wanted to talk because you said the thing about like how we as people, and partly this is going to break down by party. How do we deal with those attributes once we realize they're not what we thought they were? And so Trump said something this week, and I'm trying to find. I saw the video of it. I have not. I shared it on my story. I don't know if you saw that on Instagram yesterday. Um, but he said something, and I'm really struggling to find it here. But it was along the lines of he's talking about Graham Platner and how terrible it is what he did to that woman, and how we Republicans, he says, we would never, and he's talking to somebody who I didn't know it was. He goes, we would never let a guy like that get on the ticket. And I was just like, like assuming for 1 second that you don't believe Trump is actually a rapist, despite the adjudication and everything else, he's accused. I think nobody's denying he's accused. Graham Platner has not been adjudicated. He's credibly accused. Like, and he's credibly accused by like, I would say 2 women
He's
now.
accused twice. One very credible.
Yeah.
One, it could be the way we don't know enough about the case, and it was not. It was a person with a reason to lie, so it makes it a little less
Right.
credible
Uh,
potentially. Though it could be 100% accurate, just
yeah,
harder
absolutely.
to justify.
And now with that further perspective, I don't want to dismiss that as easily. But Trump has multiple like as many allegations. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there, for him to say it is such. I mean, I understand the world we've been in for the last 10 years of Trump on and off as president, and that there's no line he won't lie across. But that's what I posted on my story yesterday, was like, have we reached peak bullshit now? Like, to say that like the Republicans wouldn't allow that on the ticket. Like, not only would you allow it on the, like, that was
Lindsey Graham
Democrats were
defended
joking.
Trump to the end.
Yeah. Democrats were joking that like now he's getting Susan Collins' endorsement now that he is a credibly
Right.
accused rapist. Like, like the joke is that like
Gets the
you
red
guys
pill
are
vote.
it's not only it's not even a bug. It is almost a feature at this point as a conservative, like that, like it's not disqualifying, certainly.
No, you're manly enough that you don't take no for an answer.
Yeah. And so like that, and also the allegations came out on Sunday or Monday. I may fuck up the timeline slightly on this, but like, you'll get the point. And then he was out by Wednesday because the
Right.
party was demanding he get out.
Allegation day one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm suspending my campaign to look into my future day two,
Yep.
and that suspension's permanent day three.
Yep. Yep. And then I think I think Eric Swalwell was a little bit longer of a process. Also, what he was accused of is, from what I don't know, I'm not as familiar with the Eric Swalwell stuff, but a lot of it was more harassment than assault, right? Am I right about that or wrong?
I'm not sure.
So anyway, but like, so we, and Al
But it wasn't
Franken
Trump's
and
28 accusations against him.
right, but also like Matt Gaetz was sat for 3 years after his accusations, and like
Which
this,
we literally have receipts for.
right,
Like his Venmo receipts. Literally, we have the receipts,
right,
and they stopped
and
looking into it.
and I get that, like, if you look at Bill Clinton and the entirety of Bill Clinton's career and his public life, that he is hugely problematic, and and they want to call us out, and I understand, but that was 30 years ago. A lot of those issues, he hasn't held office in 26 years roughly. Like, so like, back to that changing thing, like, we have Al Franken was 10 almost 10 years ago that Al Franken stepped down for what I would consider, like,
For being a lewd comedian who did lewd comedian things
yeah.
before he was in politics.
I will. Okay, here's something else I want to talk about when we're talking about these kind of things. So we talk about redemption. I think that there is an extent to which, if like, I'll use Al Franken as the example because I think Al Franken is significantly less problematic as a person than almost everyone else we're talking about. But if Al Franken were to run again and win, I would have no problem with that.
I mean, because running again is the people saying that they've forgiven him for what he's done.
And saying like
again.
the information's out now. Like, if Graham Platner
So here's my
if Graham Platner were to do the work and run again in 2032 or whatever, I would be like, I'm not saying I'm going to be like wholeheartedly endorsing it, but I would also.
I mean, if he was found guilty, I would not support anyone voting for him. If it,
Right.
he have to. I mean, but if he came out and said, I mean, I don't know how you come back from rape. I don't even know. God, just to the side. I don't know how any amount of work can come back from being a rapist.
That's fair.
I can't think of a thing you could do.
That's fair. Right. That's fair.
Once you got to rape, I don't know how you can come back.
That's why I said like
other than the person who accused him saying, well, he really pressured me. It wasn't rape. Like if they change their story, then he's still okay. What you did was shitty and mean. and you can work with rape victims and you can come back from it. But if it's literal the way is described,
Yeah.
that it was non-consensual sex, then there's no coming back for
Okay,
president.
so let's put that
But
aside for a second. If it was the
what
totem
concerns me
conf and the
about such
Reddit
things is
posts,
if you take someone like John Edwards, since we're in North
sure.
Carolina here, right? Who was in the it was down to him, Hillary, and Obama to say who was going to be president, the Democratic candidate for president, right? And then it came out that he was having an affair with the videographer for his campaign while his wife was having her cancer treatments, and he got her pregnant, and so on and so forth. And I am like, and none of that's illegal,
Yeah, yeah.
but I, who was a Democrat at that point, I'm unaffiliated now because I don't want to be affiliated with the people who do that shit. But it was like, how the fuck do you have the gall to run for president when you know you're doing a thing
Mhm.
that would disqualify you from winning? That if this comes out, like if I win the primary and then this comes out, we 100% lose the general.
Mhm.
How in the world? And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Do you say I care about my country or my party, and I have skeletons in my closet if they come out hurt my country and my party.
Right.
Like you're a piece of shit who should no amount of restorative justice lets you get back on the ticket to me because your values and judgments are
Fair.
not going to change in that regard. You think your personal glory, like you can get away with it. I don't trust your judgment. I just don't trust your
Okay.
judgment.
That's fair. I guess what I was meaning to say, and again, you're right about the like rape is a hard line, no. And but one of my things is like, and again, we're not maniacs, so we didn't vote for and I say that about Maine people, not about like it's a nickname
Yeah,
for Maine people. Um,
I get the pun. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Uh,
We're
if we
caniacs. We're in Raleigh.
yeah we if we as let's go to our state for example. If
That's where I was.
yeah but now like right now, like, so if we're running an election and I find out something after the primary that would have changed my mind in the primary that was deceptively kept away from the public,
Hmm.
then it pisses me off. If
As Mr. Nimrod says, if I gave you money in
yeah,
your campaign under that's fraud. Like
yeah,
you misrepresented yourself and I gave you money. What the hell?
yeah, and I'm not talking. I mean, there's some things where I'd be like, oh, that literally that probably didn't even slip their mind. So like it's
Right.
not
Yeah. I don't expect your
deceptive.
entire life
Like,
story,
yeah,
but if there are things you're purposely
yeah,
hiding, you're purposely hiding that.
right. And that is where it also falls. Did you see the video of the Graham Platner vetting guy to the guy that was vetted him? And they were asking like, did you know about this? I think this came out before the accusation. It was about the other accusation, and he like the way he hesitates, and I think body language is a bullshit science to some extent, or like you're right that bullshit helps sell, or body language helps sell stuff, but
Yeah. It's definitely
like
effective in how
using it as
people
a
interpret
forensic
you.
science is, I think, bullshit typically. And but he looks like he is no he like he knew and he's lying. Like it's just anecdotal to say that, but like he just has this like look of like they because he asked the question, he goes like, and you're like, oh shit, like not a good answer, but yeah. So like that kind of thing, it's like that's why we need you to do your job, and then when that stuff comes out, you can expose it and say, like, as the candidate or as
You
the
could sit
candidate's
down with the
team,
candidate and say,
and
listen,
you can say, hey, I want to get ahead of
I
this
found this in
because
your vetting. You need to
yeah,
step down before
yeah,
so it doesn't come out.
or
It's
or
not my,
you
like, if it's not illegal, if it's illegal, I'm turning this evidence over to the DA. If it's illegal, if it's just embarrassing and shit you shouldn't have done, you had an affair with this person, you have a
yeah,
secret child, you either need to come out with that publicly and see
exactly,
if people still support you, or you need to
exactly,
step aside, one or the other.
yeah,
But
I
you
agree.
don't get to be the candidate when there's shit that's going to make you lose.
Right, I agree. I completely agree. That's what I was going to say. Is like if you come out with
Like
it,
Ted Kennedy ran over and over and over again, and everybody knew what he did, and the people in your state still voted for him. Like he
yeah,
couldn't win as president because of it, but the people in your state still voted for him.
yeah,
But that's it. Like you don't get to hide it until you're presidential candidate, and then lose the presidency because of it.
yeah. I will say so. Jason in our chat said Ted, yeah, and you just said this too, but Ted Kennedy sat for
Yeah, I was stealing it
decades.
from Jason.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but I'm reading the exact line. So, with tons of accusations, he was sat for decades with tons of accusations, and even killed the lady. But he raised the minimum wage, so all's forgiven. That is
Wait, hold on.
true.
Wait, don't. He said all's forgiven. Dot dot dot. Ugh. So
Ugh.
it sounded like you were saying that Jason forgave
No,
him.
no, no. I meant. I
Jason
meant.
had an ugh at the end.
I'm not trying to
Jason didn't
misrepresent
forgive him.
Jason's sarcasm about that. I understand. But what I was going to say is, and keep in mind, so Ted Kennedy died. He was put to rest on my like 25th birthday, like literally on my 25th birthday. So like I was young. I didn't exist for a lot of Ted Kennedy stuff, and I was young for the rest of it.
God, we know you weren't involved. You don't have to get your alibi. I
But my
wasn't
point,
even born.
no, no, no. My point being that like some of my perspective is through a weird lens, right? But a an adult Democrat told me when I was 20 something that like a big part of the reason why you keep a Ted Kennedy, and specifically Ted Kennedy, was they're the most, they've been there forever. They're the most powerful senator, and if we get rid of Ted Kennedy, we start from scratch, and we lose power as a state. I
Right.
don't think that's a good. I think that's a terrible reasoning,
But
and I
I
think
don't
that's
think
why
that's the
Susan
truth.
Collins stays in place to some
Yeah.
extent.
Well, I mean, and it's
On
like
not
Jason said
Brett.
about him get helping the minimum wage. Like he was powerful and he pushed things through.
Hmm.
But you could have developed the Democratic Party in Massachusetts, not you, obviously, could have developed a replacement for him and ran someone in a primary
Yeah,
and replaced him.
I,
Though I have to say, a musical comedic friend of mine back in the '80s sang this song at a concert. Oh, your mother is old, and your father is dead, and your brother is dead, and your brother is dead, and your brother is dead, and your son is one leg, and your wife is like, and your wife is a drunk, and your car doesn't float. And that was the Ted Kennedy jig.
I've heard that before. My uncle used to do it.
Uh,
Um, but anyway, I will say when it comes to Ted Kennedy that there was
so
growing
I gotta
growing
read
up in a
the
conservative.
humor in our chat. Jason says, "Oh fuck Ted Kennedy," and
Wasn't that
Mister
the slogan?
Namarad says, "Wasn't that his slogan?"
um. Anyway, so my point being with the Ted Kennedy stuff is, and you're right that like we should be building up we should be building up new senators, and I think, but that's something that both parties do to some extent is we keep bad people because they've been there a long time and we're afraid like of an incumbent or of losing incumbency. So you've got you got Mitch McConnell is a perfect example of he's been sitting there for fucking ever, and because if anybody were to primary him and win, and people know this when they're voting, then you are much more susceptible to lose to the other party.
You might lose the general if you switch.
Right, you
Well,
might
we should say, since Jason is in the chat and he was a high-ranking person on a campaign to unseat an incumbent Democrat in the primary, who has no accusations against them, has did
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
illegal, nothing immoral, just not been good enough. When
just different policy.
we can have
What
someone better.
the good old days of politics, the
Yeah,
good old days
but
where
I'm saying,
the
but like that is to Jason's credit and to his candidate's credit, the way it should be 100%. You should have to defend your seat.
yeah,
You shouldn't have to assume I'm the incumbent, so I can do a shitty job and just walk back in because I'm in a safe district for the general.
yeah,
So we need more primary, even for people who are doing their job, just so they continue to do it at a high level.
yeah, yeah, and yeah,
And
and
Jason says it's time for more Gen X leaders, and I'm like, any Gen X leaders for that matter. Skip right from baby boomers to millennials.
yeah. And so, which is it? Is it which one is Governor Cooper running for to replace
Tom Tillis, who's not
Tom?
running, so there's no
Right,
incumbent. It's Mike
right.
Watley is the Republican.
And this is the closest we've had to having a chance for a Democrat in a while, because we don't have an incumbent, and because a former governor's running. Like, I don't want to downplay
Yeah,
that.
someone who's never lost a statewide election. He
Right,
was
right.
attorney general and governor multiple terms.
So there's like lots of it's stacked a bit, but there is a real truth to this idea that like it's political momentum of like of what stays in motion. if you're in the position, you're
Yeah.
way more
Political
likely to
inertia
just
is a huge thing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Um, just
But some changes in the last campaign. This year, a lot
yeah,
of incumbents have lost primaries because there is
yeah.
some inertia the other way.
Well, yes, and also because of the inertia and the like the absolute ridiculous frustrations that like you said the fear what was it? Fear and money was that the other thing?
Fear and loathing in Las Vegas.
No, you said the two things that really motivate
Oh,
you.
greed and fear.
Greed. So, our economy, inflation doing badly and
My
these other
microphone
things
just
happening.
shrunk for no apparent reason.
Yeah. It happens. It did it get
It's getting
cold?
older.
Oh. Um, and so you get this idea, we've had a lot of people over, I think we've had the success of Zoran Mamdani. And not just success in the, we talked about this when he was elected, like, okay, he won the election. That's the first job. Now let's see how he does at the actual job. And we're 6 months in and he's like accomplished a lot.
And what's really
And
great is the attacks against him are all bullshit, trumped up attacks. And you're doing good when there's no look. He didn't put Little Italy on this map of an enclave. And first of all, there are no immigrants who live in Little Italy. It's not an immigrant enclave. It's a tourist trap that 4 generations ago was an Italian enclave.
yeah,
And second of all, it was a map that came out that was done under the previous administration, so he didn't have any say in what's on it in the first place.
yeah.
So it's a tan suit argument. It's like he's done nothing wrong, so we're making up something to be mad about.
Yeah. Even I mean, I really don't like Bill Maher. Bill Maher even did the same thing as what you're saying, which is like someone said, well, like he's had these great moments where he's talking about the basketball and jumping in the pool, and Bill Maher was like, I don't give a fuck about any of that, and it's like, but he's bringing people together. Like there is the work of it, and there's the symbology of
Yeah,
the
that's the Dave Chappelle ism. Dave Chappelle. So when you don't like someone, everything they do annoys you. Look at that fucking asshole eating
yeah,
chicken.
yep,
And I get that because I don't like my mayor very much politically, and there he does all these he shows up in all these places, and I'm like, God, what a self-serving. And then I'm like, actually that is kind of the role of the mayor. Not a job requirement, but that's actually not. I just don't like him doing it. But there's no
yeah,
reason he should. I have to check myself and be like some of the things he does stupid, but
yeah,
some of them, no, that makes sense. With grand opening of a new bakery, the Groovy Duck on Salem Street. I had some today. It was really delicious. Free plug. But he was did a whole video at their grand opening, and at first I was like, how cheesy is he there? And then I was like, actually, grand opening of a new business in downtown, which is downtown's going through construction, so it needs more business.
yeah,
He's actually doing a good thing, good mayor thing to do. I just don't like him being the mayor who's doing it. So I
right.
need to check myself and realize he is doing the right thing. And Groovy Duck is very yummy. You should go to Groovy Duck.
Yeah, they look cool. And they look right. This is
But
going to be. Oh, it's a
they have
new
a
location.
so they're not which is really good because 3 bakeries in a row have closed at this location. So but like they were like people who hadn't owned a bakery before kind of thing.
Yeah,
So really nice that these people who have run a bakery in Raleigh on Edwards Mill are now running one in Apex.
yeah,
And their website is deceptive for what they actually have. Like the website shows you can pre-order cookies and cakes, but when you go in there's brownies and blondies and cupcakes and muffins. They have a lot more than what's orderable on the website.
nice.
Worth going in. Visit downtown Apex. Great. Get some yummy pastries. Then walk 3 blocks to the west and go to Peak of the Vine. My daughter's the bar my daughter works in, and you can bring food in. So you can bring the pastries in, have some dessert wine, and have a lovely time.
Yeah, I would say if it's not 100 degrees outside, downtown Apex is a great place.
Today was a great day. We
Yeah,
walked over down today and did that basically, and it
yeah,
was the right day to do it.
yeah. The last week hasn't been great, but on a good
Yeah.
day,
In the
there's a
70s
lot.
today, so
There's
today
some
was a
really
good
good
day.
restaurants. There's now there like we Alex and I walked down there trying to talk to people about doing video work 2 months ago, and we were like, oh, this is new, and it is a great spot.
uh, I don't
Kissing
want to.
babies they're gonna read.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know if that's an accusation we want to say on the bot. I don't want to. I don't know if it's potential defamation, even if he's
Mm.
probably right. So do. We'll let that sit in the chat.
Yeah. Um
Um, Yeah. So have you been to Serafina on Apex's main drag there?
I've walked in. I haven't had it yet. You said a couple weeks ago that it was good.
It was really good, but I also was like I was really weird. Like I don't know if this is
Yeah,
authentic or if it. I talked to a friend from Rome and described what I had, and he's like, "No, I think it's just a chef putting his twist on Italian food." So it was delicious, but it wasn't authentic Italian. It was just a delicious twist on the food, like a deconstructed thing, and it was
yeah.
delicious. But so the food's delicious. I can see people being upset who don't like it being upset because they went in expecting Olive Garden but higher quality and got this deconstructed thing that wasn't what they're used to seeing on their plate.
Well, you said
So
it's not authentic Italian, but it's really, really good. So that is Olive Garden, but higher quality.
well, but I mean, not even authentic, not authentic. Like, so it's not what you expect because it's not normal Italian American. Like Olive
Oh
Garden is
yeah,
Italian American. So I was
you're
like,
really pushing
oh,
the boundaries of that.
I mean, like say, well, look at this, like a lasagna that's full of ricotta cheese. In Italy, it's bechamel, not ricotta cheese. So Italian American
Yeah,
is ricotta cheese. This one was a deconstructed lasagna that was layers of meat and layers of like it didn't look like an American lasagna. So I thought maybe it's an authentic Italian lasagna from someplace. And my
yeah.
Italian friend said, no, that's a I'm a chef. Here's a haute couture version of lasagna, but it was freaking delicious. So if you go in with I'm going to eat delicious, expensive food, regardless of where the inspiration came from.
Yeah.
It's very lovely.
You can make a lasagna in your dishwasher, by the way, if you really wrap it tight with
Foil.
tin foil, like
Yeah, I
several
tried that. I
layers.
wrapped my entire dishwasher, and then when I opened the thing, everything was wet inside. I once had a cookbook that someone gave me called Manifold Destiny, and
Nice.
it was ways to
Everything on the
make different
car
things
car.
and wrap it with foil and put it in. And it was like the different recipes were different parts of your engine where you should put it so it would get different amounts of heat. And it was
Yeah,
basically for salespeople to have a hot lunch when they stopped for their lunch finally after driving around doing sales all morning. So it was
nice.
like, sandwiches would be in a place that were relatively cool. So it was just enough to keep it toasty and warm, maybe melt the cheese. Something that had to be hot was closer to the engine. So it actually got really hot. It
Yeah.
was a very funny. I didn't try any of the recipes, but it was a funny book to read.
I got down a little bit of a rabbit hole on Instagram watching the guy I sent you that I said it was like a young CK just because he talks to the cameraman is
Yeah.
why I was saying that and does like kind of a ridiculous New York accent, uh, like over the top. Not I don't think it's inauthentic. I just think it's over the top. And he saw a video where someone else had done like a wrapped it a bunch of times in tin foil and put it in, and he did it, and he's like, "This can't be right." And he pulls it out, and he goes, "That's lasagna. That's pretty
Yeah,
good
I mean, you
lasagna."
pre-boil the only thing you're doing when you're baking it really is
Yeah,
melting the cheese. You're not going to be able to brown the cheese in the steaming version, but
yeah,
it's like steaming food, right?
yeah,
Anyway, we're getting into the talking about the small stuff, and it's 7:30, so maybe we
yeah,
time to we start wrapping.
yeah,
So saying that, I'll say, hey, everyone in the chat, I hope you liked this video. Anyone watching this video in the future, if you like the video, please give it a like. The chat was very active. So people watching it, you probably had the same thoughts people in the chat did. So make comments. Hey, even if you have nothing to say, lie. Pretend you have something to say and make a comment. It helps the algorithm. And if we're going to use algo language, the least you can do is do algorithming. Okay?
yeah.
Thank you.
The algorithm is how we wrap to the algorithm when we wrap things up.
Let me tell you, my brother has a podcast. It's a really excellent podcast. It's called The Climate Champions. He interviews CEOs and scientists and tech people about things they're doing to fight climate change. But because he's an improviser, he then at the end wraps their entire conversation. Like he takes notes and he wraps the entire thing. And he is the whitest white boy who ever whited. So I'm like, I beg him, can you stop calling it a rap? Call it a beat poem. That's white. You can call it a beat poem because you're closer to that than you are a rap. And it's incredibly impressive on how he takes their entire conversation and distills it down into a perfect summary. But God, for God's sake, you're not even doing like a Will Smith rap. It's not even like it's so anyway. Hey, tell us about patreon.com/talking about the big stuff.
Sure. At patreon.com/talking about the big stuff, you have four options to help support us. One is for free. You should go there and check that out. Even if you don't want to give us money, you should subscribe for free because that helps us again with the algorithm. And it gives you updates on certain things. Like there is a good chance that you'll know about when we do our documentary. I'm probably going to put it up there for a day or two, like the first draft or second draft of it, like of the edit, to let people see that, to let Matthew, that just an easier way to show Matthew and Alex basically, but patrons might be able to see that early, and get a good idea of what we're doing over there on the, so things like that are great. Although that's not going to be free, but you'll know about it when when it comes out. $1 option will get you access to all the episodes early. The $3 option gets you all of the above, plus uh all the things that we decided to cut out, like, talking about our nipples or whatever weird shit we decided to talk about. I don't know an example of something we're gonna cut out from tonight's yet, so I just.
Oh, probably about all my gay sex references for Lindsey Graham.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Giving a
That's
handing
actually
and a
that's
blowjob to Joe Biden
yeah, yeah, and or bending over and taking it from Trump. You said,
while
and
biting the
then
pillow.
if you want to
Don't
give us
forget biting the pillow.
$10 a
That's
month,
important.
like certain great people that are in the chat right now, you can get access to the pre-show shenanigans, which everybody in the chat today did get, because it's the live stream. But you can also do that through the $10 option whenever you want, and not have to be here specifically at 6:30 or 6:15 when we start streaming. And yeah, so that's it. I will say one last thing before we really wrap things up, Matthew. Alex and I did a day of work together last week where I was working on the documentary and he was working his job, but anytime he had free time, I would show him how to edit certain things because he's learning the editing software. And he pulled up clips from 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he heard how bad his keyboard was and was like, "Holy shit, you've been dealing." I'm like, "I've been telling you for a year." And he's like, "That is so bad." And I'm like,
Did
"I
you
am
think we
aware."
were joking?
I'm like, I get that we were like razzing you about it, but like we also were serious. Like it is clunk 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 clunk
I
clunk
mean, you
clunk.
bought him a keyboard.
Yeah.
Clearly, you were
Well, he
serious if you bought
started
him a
you and
keyboard.
he goes, "I thought I started using," and I'm like, "This is the you're editing the episode before you implemented the new keyboard." So, all right. So with that, Matthew, do you have any last thoughts?
I just want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll talk about the big stuff, especially the folks in the chat. It was a particularly lively chat today. I would
Yeah.
vote for all of you, despite the backgrounds I know you both have.
Yeah. I just saw about
Alex, anything? No?
no, Jason just wrote, "Don't forget Lindsay's ladybugs," which if you haven't seen that already, go check